I love technology. I've used mobile devices for many, many years, starting with PDAs originally, things like BlackBerry devices. Then when smartphones came out with the original iPhone, I started using iPhones for several years. But then I moved from the dark side and I discovered Android. And I've been using Android flagship smartphones for many years now. I've used Samsung, I've used Google, I've used Oppo, I've used Motorola, a whole range of them. I tend to gravitate towards the top of the range phones, the ones with the biggest screen and the fastest CPU, and I've been generally very happy with them. Although I did find I was starting to get a little bit of eye strain, probably an age thing, and I found a tablet device, and this is it. This is the TCL NXTPAPER 11 Plus, and this has TCL's NXTPAPER 4 technology on the screen. What it means is it gets rid of most of the reflections. They claim 0 reflections. I would say it gets rid of over 90% of the reflections. I'm in a bright studio with lights above. I've got bright sunshine outside the window there, and there's very little in the way of refractions, particularly when you're looking straight on at the screen. It's probably not that easy to show on a camera. You're going to have to take my word for it, but it is amazing technology. And I've been using it for a few months. And then I thought, well, if you can do that with a tablet, then what about with a mobile phone? So I bought this, and this is TCL's NXTPAPER 60 Ultra. It is TCL's flagship smartphone. Now, it is flagship for TCL, but compared to maybe Oppo, Samsung, Google, and others, it's not quite in the same categories as those. But I wanted to see whether this would help with my eyes and put a little bit less strain on my eyes. I'm looking for a sort of calmer digital life, if you like. I still love digital life, but I was trying to see if I could do anything to help my eyes a little bit. So I've got the tablet, I've got the smartphone. I've also bought myself one of these, the Withings Scan Watch, because it has all the sensors, but it doesn't have the bright screen. So again, it helps a little bit in that way. So the question is this the cure for eye strain? Let's find out. Before we look at the screen itself, just cover off the specifications of the device. As I said, this is a mid-range device. It has a MediaTek Dimensity 7400, which is a 4 nanometer octa-core processor. It's a solid mid-range processor, not flagship, but it is efficient. It has 12 gigabytes of RAM built in, and it comes in 2 different storage options. You've got 256 gigabyte and 512 gigabytes. This particular one is the 512 gigabyte one. The operating system out of the box is Android 15. It has a nice clean interface, and it has TCL's UI overlay. We'll have a little bit of a look at the UI later. The screen is the main claim to fame, if you like, for this phone. It is large. It is 7.2-inch display. That's massive. That's the biggest screen I've ever used on a phone. It doesn't feel that massive in the hand. It's quite lightweight and it's slim. It doesn't have too shiny a back. It's not a glass back, so it's not too slippery there either. It actually feels quite good in the hand. It is IP68 water and dust resistant, which again is a little bit surprising for a mid-range phone. It has good connectivity. It has global 5G LTE. It has Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.4 built. The screen itself is obviously the standout bit. This is the magic. The TCL NXTPAPER 4 technology. It gives the screen a matte finish. It's called a nano matrix lithography screen, which are fancy words for it feels a little bit like paper. If you run your finger over it, it does feel a little bit less slippery than a glossy screen, slightly different feel. Your finger slides over it easily enough. It's not difficult or anything like that. It's when you use this, a stylus. When you use a stylus, you can definitely feel it's got a little bit of resistance. If I put this up against the microphone, you might hear it's got that feeling of pencil on paper. It's good. It's actually quite good. 0 reflections indoors. Well, as I said, not 0, but pretty much 0, close to 0. On the side of the device, we actually have a physical switch. It's here on the side and it slides up and down. At the moment, it's in the down position, which is the full color mode, normal mode, if you like. If you slide it up, this is the ink mode. So it is a grayscale finish, if you like. You've still got all the apps on here. It's a grayscale finish. If you go into an app where you're doing reading, you'll see the screen is very Kindle-like. I have a Kindle Paperwhite, and when I place the two side by side, difficult to tell the difference. Very good screen, and for reading, it's superb. If we then slide that key back down, it's going to do its magic, and it's going to put it back into that full color mode, like so. If you're reading websites, if you're reading books, NXTPAPER I just opened then, if you're reading a news website or something like that, it is superb, just what you need. Now, often phones that are mid-range like this one, they don't have the best cameras in the world. I was pleasantly surprised with this one. The main sensor is a 50 megapixel with optical image stabilization. It gives a nice crisp shots and decent low light photography. The surprise was the periscope telephoto lens, again 50 megapixel with 3 times optical zoom. Rare in this kind of price bracket, and I'll cover the price later. It also has a third camera on the back, an ultra wide. This is an 8 megapixel camera. It's functional, but it's a little bit soft compared to the main lenses. The front camera is quite a good one. It's a 32 megapixel camera, good for video calls, and it gives decent skin tones when you're using it. Ultimately, I was expecting to sacrifice camera quality quite a bit coming from my previous phone, the Oppo Find X9 Pro, which has superb cameras. But I found out I didn't actually give up as much as I thought I was going to. Now, the screen, and that was my main reason for buying it. I wanted to try and reduce reflections when looking at my phone screen. We spend a lot of time in front of our phones. The matte screen is, the way it works, it tends to scatter light. So it's great for reducing reflections, but it's bad for brightness intensity. This screen only goes up to 780 nits in its high brightness mode. You compare that to my previous Oppo phone and flagships from Samsung, Google, and others, they're well over 2000 nits. So in the real world, out in the sunshine, I live in Perth in Western Australia. We get a lot of sunshine. I have found that in bright sunshine, particularly even if I'm sat in the shade, if there's bright sunshine around me, the screen can appear a little bit washed out. It makes it not quite as direct and clear as you would get with a normal phone. The problem with a normal phone is you're going to have to angle it so you're not getting the reflections, but once you've got it at the right angle, it's nice and bright and clear. This one, you don't need to worry about the angling it so much, but it does mean the screen appears a little bit washed out in direct sunlight. Makes it harder to frame photos or read maps in bright sunlight. So it's perfect if you're using it in your living room, in the bedroom, in the office, on the train, indoors. If you are, however, outdoors, not so good on the beach. The battery inside the phone is 5,200 milliamp, a decent size. Because the screen is often dimmer, it doesn't have bright HDR blazing out of it all the time, it lasts ages. You're easily going to get a full day out of it, probably into 2 or even 3 days. Now, if you switch it into one of the other NXTPAPER modes, it can last multiple days. Charging, not the best. It's a 33-watt wired charger, which is a bit slow by some modern standards. Takes over an hour for a full charge. The caveat is that you don't need to charge it that often because it lasts a long time. And I tend to put my phone on charge overnight, so it's fully charged when I get up in the morning. Now, it does not support wireless charging. You have to plug it into the USB-C port on the bottom. It comes with a stylus, which came in the box, and the stylus is great if you're signing PDFs and doing things like that. I can't say I used it a great deal myself. Performance-wise, the Dimensity 7400 is snappy enough for daily tasks. It's not a gaming beast. You're not going to be playing Genshin Impact on this phone. You can, but it doesn't perform that brilliantly. But mid-range games, they work absolutely fine. And what we ought to do now is just have a quick look at the user interface of the device. All right, so we're now looking at the main screen for my TCL NXTPAPER 60 Ultra. It's a typical Android home screen in that you can swipe to the side to open up additional screens. You can swipe across to the right to open up the Google Discover and scroll through the different apps in there. And then we scroll back to here. Scroll up from the middle of the screen, it brings up our app drawer, lists all our apps, with the most recently used ones at the top. If we swipe down from the left-hand side, it'll bring up notifications if you've got any, and you can also look at your notification history. Swipe down from the right-hand side, and it brings us to the quick settings tiles. We can also click on this pencil icon, and that allows us to drag additional tiles up and change the order of the ones on the screen. If we click on the gear icon, That's going to open up our settings. At the top, we've got a My Device tab, and that will tell us a little bit about this device itself. So it is the TCL NXTPAPER 60 Ultra. It's running Android 15. It has 12 gigabytes of physical RAM plus an additional 12 gigabytes of storage memory. It's using it to boost it. It's running a MediaTek Dimensity 7400 and has 512 gigabytes of storage. The display is 120 Hz variable refresh rate, and it has a resolution of 1080 by 2340. The battery capacity is 5,200 milliamp hours. The front camera is a 32 megapixel selfie camera, and on the rear we have three cameras. We have a 50 megapixel main camera plus a 50 megapixel telephoto camera, and finally an 8 megapixel wide angle camera. This is model number T951K. Oh, there's an other specs screen, and that just gives you some of the baseband versions, the kernel, etc. Looking down here, we have the typical settings: your Wi-Fi network, your Bluetooth network settings, connections, allowing us to pair up with printers and devices like that, Chromebooks and other devices. Then we have our home screen and lock screen settings. This is where we can change our wallpaper and style, change the lock screen settings like the clock and the colors. We can change our lock screen shortcuts. I've turned them off. I don't particularly like them on the lock screen. We can go into our home settings and look at the home screen style, the drawer style, etc. Icon badges, empty cells. So it will automatically fill empty cells when apps are moved. In other words, operates a bit like an Apple phone. Everything slides across. It's very annoying, so I don't use that. We go back out of here. We come to our NXTPAPER Zone, and this is of interest particularly for this phone, as this is what the key feature of the phone is, the display itself. We have the NXTPAPER key that we've looked at. That NXTPAPER key can operate in two modes. So I have got it in its enter immediately mode. So it effectively just has two positions. The bottom position is the normal full color mode, and when I slide it up, it goes into ink paper mode straight away. Now, if that was switched off, when you operated the key, it would bring you to this screen and you could choose the three different modes. But I prefer it going straight into ink paper mode when I need it, so I've set it up that way. The display itself, adaptive brightness is switched off. I don't particularly like that. It never seems to quite get it the way I like. I've got it set in dark mode at the moment. You can put eye comfort mode on. Reading mode will effectively turn it into a black and white device, very like a Kindle. There are various other settings we can do. So I've got sleep mode set for 5 minutes at the moment, but you can change it right the way up to never. You can adapt the refresh rate. I've set it to 60 Hertz because I'm recording a video, and if you have it higher, you sometimes get banding in the recording. We can change the display size and the text if we want to. So we can make the icons a little bit smaller. We can change the font size, and we can change the display size itself. Auto rotate, status bar and dotch. So this is the bit at the top of the screen. So what's showing along here? So I've got the battery percentage showing, and I've got the notification icons folder. So all notifications will be hidden, and you just click on that and it brings up. You can also change some of these things like hiding the front camera without moving the status bar. So it avoids it doing that. Hide front camera. So this is where you move the dotch down a bit below the camera itself if you want to display it, but that's going to take up some of your screen space. Get back out of the display mode. Sound and vibration, in common with most Android phones, we can change the volume for different aspects of the phone. This is where we can modify our notification settings. We can manage individual app notifications. We have a smart manager. This will scan the phone and decide if it needs any work doing on it. And as you can see there, my phone is currently reported as unhealthy. That'll probably be some cleaning up that needs to do, and I'll do that later. Oh, just illustrated a particular feature of the phone, which I'll come to in a minute. Shows where our storage is used and what's using most of the storage. Our app screen. This is where we can change things like the default apps on the phone. Some advanced features. And one of these is the quick gestures. And this is where you can do things like a 3-finger screenshot, lift to wake, etc. You can change what the power key does. So I've got it set at the moment to power button ends a call. I think I'm going to change that to access my digital assistant. Oh, I see. At the moment it's set so long press accesses the digital assistant. Yeah, that's what I want. The sidebar is similar to what Samsung does on their phones. You have this little indicator. I've put it alongside where the power button is because it helps remind me where that is. But if you slide out from that, you can put apps in this little side drawer. I often use it for accessing the calculator app, for example. Returning to the settings, location, which apps are using your location with permissions. Safety and emergency, you can set up things like emergency SOS so that when emergency services respond to you and they find you with your phone, they can actually access some of your information. And there are other features as well. You can have more than one account linked to the phone. Digital well-being, something I don't particularly look at, but this shows you which apps you're using most on your phone. And you can set various timers and bedtime mode and things like that. And there's different focus modes you can set up. Google shows that you've got the Google apps. The phone is a global one. It came with all the Google stuff already installed. So you've got things like Google Wallet, the Find Hub, Quick Share, and family groups. Accessibility settings, the same as most Android phones. And finally, our system settings, where we can check for a system update and see if anything needs updating. And it's up to date, so we don't need to do that. And that is a quick look at the user interface of the TCL NXTPAPER 60 Ultra. I'm not sure if it comes across completely on the camera, but the main advantage of this phone is obviously that screen. It is superb. Is it worth your money? Well, I actually think it's quite good value for money. They don't sell it directly in Australia. They sell it in Europe, and I believe they sell it in some other countries. I had to pay Amazon 960 Australian dollars to have it shipped to Australia. That's around about 640 US dollars. And that's quite good value. You get the device itself, but you also get some extras in the box. Now, I went for the 512 gigabyte version. The 512 gigabyte version comes with these extras. The 256 gigabyte version does not. So you get the stylus I've mentioned. It also comes with a holder for the stylus. And the stylus pops into here and sort of gets hold of it magnetically, and that bit pops in there. It has a couple of tabs on the stylus holder, and they slide onto this, like so. This is a magnetic slip-on case for the phone. It does not support wireless charging, as I've already mentioned, but it does allow it to attach to a magnetic holder. So if you're using a magnetic holder in the car or maybe on your bedside table, it will stick on that. The phone itself slides into the magnetic case quite easily. It also comes with this. This is the folio case. Sticks it into the folio case, and when you close the case, it's going to switch off the screen. And when you open the case, it will switch it back on. An elastic strap, and that holds the case closed, as you can see, and it gives quite a nice finish and a bit of security and safety for your device. Now, I've already said this is a large device with a 7.2-inch screen. With this on, it's even larger. Now, if you're a guy with a big pair of cargo pants, not going to have any problems. Ladies, you have the not very big pockets in your jeans, things. You're going to struggle a bit getting this in those pockets. But I guess you can always put it in your purse. It'll be fine there. So it's very nice to have included. But to be honest, I don't use it very much. I tend to prefer the device out of the case because it just makes it slimmer and easier to use. And I do like that. So my final verdict on this is it is a specialist tool if you read a lot, if you hate glare on the screen, and if you live most of your life indoors, or you're mainly indoors when you're using your phone. If, however, you work outdoors a lot and you use your phone in blinding sunlight, and perhaps you want to play Genshin Impact and other high impact games that need a bright HDR display, don't buy it. It's a kind of flawed masterpiece. Having said that, this is one I'm going to keep hold of because I just love this screen. When I'm here indoors, this screen is amazing. Thank you very much for watching. I don't do a lot of these videos. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I probably release roughly one a month. I buy the phones with my own money. They don't get sent to me. So it's a kind of expensive hobby, as you'd imagine. So thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated.